Greetings. Hello. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. Thank you very, very much for coming out and joining us. I'm Brian Rademacher, and I am the AMA Waterways sales guy for Northern California, coming to you from Sonoma County in Petaluma. And we're so happy, as we say, that you have decided to spend a little time with us. And hopefully, we'll give you a little time. Hopefully, you have a little libation of the wine variety. Good, Lori. Good, Liz. We're all set, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to kind of combine wine tasting with also looking at a new itinerary in France, which is wine mecca, of course, on a promotion or on a sailing date, actually, that's a little over a year from now that Lori is talking about with us. And so let me do two housekeeping items before I introduce Lori and Liz. The two housekeeping items are that there is a question box there, so feel free to type your questions in. Best practice is to usually do it as you think of it, and then that way you don't have to remember what it was when we get to the end of the webinar. I knew I had a question, what was it? So you can just type it in, and we'll get to it towards the end. That's number one. Number two, real nice thing, this is being recorded, right? So I'm going to send to Lori the recording, and then we'll ask you, if you're so inclined, to share the video with your family, your friends, your colleagues, because who doesn't like talking about wine and France and all river cruising on top of it, the cherry on top. So we'll say definitely share the video, which is nice because then other people can take advantage of seeing it as well. And you can watch it again if you want. All right, so that's the housekeeping item. So first, let me introduce the lady who is responsible for inviting Liz and I to our webinar this evening. She's a wonderful supporter of ours. So Lori McDonald of Cruise Planners, say hello.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope everybody has their wine and they're ready to take a very fun look at Burgundy and Provence in river cruising in general. And thank you so much, Liz and Brian, for joining me tonight. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you, Lori. All right. And, you know, we don't really advertise much. AMA Waterways are kind of a little under the radar as it relates to advertising. So what we do is we rely on our true partnership with our travel advisor partners like Lori. And so they are the ones that we're so ingratiated to in the sense that they tell you all about us. So thank you, Lori, for that. And Liz, you want to say hi? Liz Barrett. Hello.
I'm a certified specialist of wine, which just makes me a professional wino. And I manage all of our wine cruises. And this is an actual date of one of our very special and a great date for a wine cruise. An amazing itinerary. So I'm excited. We're going to tell you about it. And we're going to try a couple of those wines that you will be tasting in Burgundy when you join us.
Cool. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So it's showtime. Without further ado, we'll dive into the PowerPoint. And so, as Liz was saying, this is a wonderful time. Again, it's not till next year, April 7 through 14 of 2022, on a new itinerary for us that's actually beginning this year called Essence of Burgundy and Provence. And Liz will tell you a little later on that she had a little bit to do with this itinerary coming into our repertoire, as it were. So that's kind of cool. We'll talk about that. And of course, that's a beautiful picture of Provence there. And that is an area that you will thoroughly enjoy. There are our official pictures where we're spiffed out, dressed up a little bit there. So again, welcome and thank you so much again for joining us today. So I guess we'll start right off again with a toast to Lori, to you all for joining us, to AMA Waterways and our wine cruises. So let's do a toast. Say cheers, prost, zomba, salute. Yes.
Cheers.
And here's a tip. When you do a toast or prost with someone, you have to look them in the eye and you have to take a drink because otherwise it's very bad luck. So you got to drink. It's the rules. So everybody sip. Oh, yummy. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yum, yum, yum. All right. Good deal. So that's our first toast. It won't be our last. We're going to sip some more wine, and we're going to do it kind of just ad hoc as we feel like it, but we'll let you know. That picture we always show because, number one, it's a beautiful picture. Number two, it's true, the statement, oceans take you to the countries and rivers take you through them. And frankly, that's why river cruising pre-COVID was really hot as a travel thing to do. And post-COVID, in the new world we're coming to, river cruising is going to remain that way for many of the same reasons pre-COVID. And a lot of it has to do with the smaller, more intimate ships, the ease of the travel, the fact that you are going to these wonderful villages and towns and bigger cities that, frankly, all emanated from the river in terms of establishing commerce with themselves. And truly, these were the roads of old and still are to this day, albeit now we do find these beautiful river cruise ships cruising on them. And so you're always within a given country's boundaries. That's certainly one of the key differences between an ocean and a river cruise, where ocean, typically you're out in the ocean, of course, but on river cruises, you're always within, as I say, a given country's boundaries. So we like to say we take you on the veins, if you will, of Europe to the heart of Europe, right? So that's sort of the thing that we say. And here's another thing we say. We are very proud of the fact that we had an experience of operating our river cruise product last year. And you might say, how did you do that? That's a very good question. Well, we chartered one of our ships called the Ama Christina to a German tour operator, a very big German tour operator, and we operated from early July in the summer into mid-November in the fall for 4.5 months. Two really important things to mention here as it relates to this experience. One, we didn't have any cases of COVID, right? That was the intent. Now you might say, wow, you guys were lucky. We say luck is the residue of design. And the fact that we were obviously hoping that would be the case, and it happened that way. Over 1,600 guests cruised with us, and that's the end result, no cases of COVID. Very pleased about that. You know, as important was the fact that we were able to put into place the various health and safety protocols as the only North American river cruise brand operating in Europe last summer. So what that means is that experience, and nothing beats experience. You can talk about it all you want and hear anecdotal stories, but it's better to be in the game, playing the game, than to listen to anecdotal stories of, gee, how was it? No, we were doing it. And so then that experience that we garnered last year becomes invaluable as we move forward. Now, next April in France, who knows how much of all these protocols and health and safety things will still be in place? We don't know. The goalposts, frankly, change hourly, it seems these days. But nevertheless, what we were able to practice for those 4.5 months, very, again, invaluable. So we make mention of that. Now, traveling with confidence, obviously, that's an important thing. So if you want to know more about what it is that we did on the Ama Christina for those 4.5 months, you can just go to this website called amawaterways.com/travel-updates, and you can see it all cashed out there in writing. But we do want you, when you make a reservation with Lori and you're coming with us, to know that we have your best interest at heart as far as the health and safety protocols in this, sort of new world that we are in these days. The other thing that people want in the company that they're going to go with travel-wise is not only the peace of mind of knowing that the health and safety things are in place, but flexibility as it relates to making reservations. So we have a couple of programs that got extended from the end of January to the end of March that are with that in mind, with flexibility and peace of mind. These are insurance type things. One is called the Ultimate Cruise Flexibility Program, and the other is called the Travel Waiver Plus Program. These are on top of our standard cruise protection plan. We all know that we should get travel insurance. That's a no-brainer. These are just added sort of elements to give you further peace of mind with elements of flexibility. So that's what folks want. So we are offering those, and Lori can tell you more about those going forward. Now, this is our brand truths, the things we bring to the table. And I'm not a PowerPoint presenter where I'm going to read every one of those bullet points to you, because I don't like that when someone does that when I'm watching a PowerPoint, so I'm not going to do that to you. You can peruse those bullet points at your leisure. And some of those will stand out to you more than certainly than others. To the upper left, though, I will mention that Berlitz, along with Frommers and Fodor's, Berlitz, those were the triumvirate of travel guides that we all read. And Berlitz is still very much in the game as it relates to doing reviews of both ocean ships and river ships as well. So the Berlitz guide, we're very pleased. Douglas Ward is the author. He's too famous. He's like the famous restaurant critic that shows up and everybody knows, and so you got to put on your A game. Douglas Ward sends out all these mystery shoppers. We don't know they're on board. Anyway, long story short, we were and are rated as the best ships in Europe. Very pleased about that. But all those things you see there, the bullet points we bring to the table. Of course, from my standpoint, I'll just mention a few. The crew, incredible. The cuisine, right there with it. Indeed, we've already talked about hygiene and cleanliness. We're going to talk about financial stability. So again, all of these things you will thoroughly enjoy when you come on board. So this is the specific itinerary that we're talking about this evening. And Liz, I'm going to have you jump in and maybe talk about the fact that we've been doing this neck of the woods down here in Provence, right? We've been doing that, but what makes this special is adding in Burgundy, right?
Burgundy. Oh my goodness. And the Rhone region and the Saône region couldn't be more different. Everything is wine in Burgundy. It's small family-owned vineyards across the street. The soil is completely different, so it's going to have a different effect on the varietals and the way the wine is grown and produced. And as Brian alluded to, I really didn't have a whole lot to do with it, but I used to, I used to kind of bug Rudy and ask, why don't we do Burgundy? We do the Rhone, why don't we go into Burgundy? And he was, Liz, we can't navigate it. It's too small. We would have to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Rudy, it's wine. So we're doing it. I'm so excited. He figured it out. He's brilliant. And yes, honestly, I cannot wait to go on this itinerary. It is extraordinary. Our operations department put together an amazing itinerary.
Indeed. And when Liz says Rudy is one of our owners, Rudy Schreiner. He's the absolutely acknowledged, both officially and anecdotally, he's the true godfather of North American river cruising. I'm not going to give you all the reasons why, but he is that, and he is our owner. And we've been family owned since 2002, actually. And all the ships are paid for. We have 25 ships this year, and every single one of the ships has zero debt. And they are not cheap to build, but we pay cash up front when we build our ships. So that's another thing. Financially, we're very steady indeed. As a matter of fact, we are already 30% booked for next year, for 2022. And we just opened the books for 2023 for a couple of our itineraries. And by the March 17th, all of our itineraries will be open for 2023. So again, very financially sound and stable. So this itinerary starts in the north, and actually you can start with a 3-night pre-cruise here in Geneva, Switzerland, right? That's again a new opportunity in offering Geneva. And then you head southbound on the cruise through these places. You start in Chalon-sur-Saône, Tournos, Mâcon and Cluny, Villefranche-sur-Saône, which is cruising in that area, Lyon, Vienne, Valence, Avignon, and then finishing in Arles down here. And then there is an opportunity to do a 3-night post-cruise here in Barcelona, Spain, right? Now, there is a deal, if you will, in place right now through the end of this month. And what it is, it's a savings of $500 per person for double occupancy, then $1,000 per cabin, if you will, off of the price. And so that is kind of cool because that officially is going away at the end of March, right? So now to make a reservation, just to be upfront about it real quickly, it's a $400 per person deposit. That's what you do to make a reservation, $400 per person, and then final payment is at 90 days prior, all right? So just want to make mention of that. And this is the beautiful Amacello. And the Amacello will be your vessel. She only carries 144 guests, and I said earlier, part of the allure, and there's many things that make river cruising so sensational and wonderful, but a big part of the allure to river cruising that we have seen and are seeing even more so now, again, are people gravitating to being on smaller, more intimate ships, right? And so that fits the bill here with Amacello indeed. I say it's time for another, I'm just gonna make an executive decision and say, should we do another toast?
I
Yes.
think we need to do a wine tasting, honestly. Okay, so anybody that has wine with them, Lori, did you buy the white or did you buy the red?
I have the red.
Okay, let me start with the white, and you can do this with red, because this is the fun part of wine tasting. There's a thing called the 5 S's, and that's a really easy way to act like you know what you're doing when you're doing a wine tasting. So you always think of the S's. The first one is see, like look at it. So for me, I'm doing the white Burgundy, which is a Chardonnay grape. So in Burgundy, it's all about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So Brian and Lori have a Pinot Noir, and I also have one too, because you know I'm a professional, I have to do it all. So if you look at it, if you look at white wine, this looks kind of amber colored. So it's a little bit more, has a little bit more body than say a Sauvignon Blanc, a Pinot Grigio. And this one in particular, and I think it's pretty standard for white Burgundy, it's unoaked, which means it's lighter, it's fruitier, it doesn't have the manipulation that a lot of times we have in North American wines. So that's the C. Then, and the color will kind of tell you the age. This is probably a relatively young wine because it's pretty clear. If it's the red, you can tell if it's got a little bit of purple around it, it's probably a little bit younger. If it has a little brick hue, that means it's got a little bit more oxidation, which means it's aged a little bit. So all of it's good. And then let's see, then we're going to swirl it. That's the second S. So swirl your wine, because what that does is it releases all of those volatile compounds so that you can actually sniff it or smell it, which is the third S. Stick your nose in there. Don't just do, oh, stick your nose in. And kind of just let it wash over you. I'm not great with all of the descriptors, but I know with Chardonnay, you're gonna smell some apple. With Pinot Noir, it's usually like a cherry note, like stone fruit, but very fruity. Both of these are fruity. Then we're gonna sip it. So let's all take a sip.
Finally.
Don't let it go just straight into the back of your throat. Let it coat your entire mouth. And if that's your first sip, which I'm hoping that is not your first sip. If it is, you got to take another one, because the first one just kind of cleanses your palate. And like if you've had anything to eat beforehand, God help you if you brushed your teeth, you're going to need like 3 sips before you actually taste the wine. So just take a sip and let it like coat your mouth. If you feel a little bit of tingling on the side of your tongue, that's a little bit of acid, which is really great for food. So a Pinot Noir has a little bit of acid. It's got a little bit of sweet. It's not sugar, but it's a little bit more of a fruity nature on the tip of your tongue, a little bit of acid. And that's great for food because it cuts through the food. And then we're just gonna take another sip and savor it. That's your 5 S's.
All right.
And we'll do another one with the Pinot Noir, which is the red Burgundy, but we'll do that down the road, and you guys are gonna have to repeat. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, so now I'm going to show a little video, and this one actually has Liz in it, and this is about our wonderful wine cruises, that this cruise is going to be one with a guest winemaker. So let's show that here.
Hi, my name is Liz Barrett, and I am a certified specialist of wine, and I am Ama Waterway's wine expert who helped to put all of this wonderful experience together for you this week. And you are in for a treat. You're on a ship with some of the best crew, so get to know them. And we've added a lot of wine excursions onto the normal spectacular itinerary. You're going to be traveling into different wine regions. You're going to be going to wineries where you get to meet some of the family members, some of the wine cellars. You're going to have expert guides who are going to be able to tell you all about old world wines, the different varietals, some of which you've probably never heard of in North America, the different processes, many of which are regulated by the government, and you're going to be tasting some of these fun wines, getting to know the different scents, which are very, very different from our North American wines. And because of that, we also have a very special treat for you. We brought a wine host on board to celebrate this celebration of wine cruise with you. This wine host is from North America. They speak your language, they understand your palate probably better than you do, because it's probably evolved from understanding big, fruit-forward, wonderful North American wines, but they're very, very different from Old World style. So your wine host is going to be the glue that takes you between Old World and New World, and you get to do this side by side. And that is what sets Ama Waterways apart, because we want to give you an entire comprehensive view of the world of wine. Not only what you're traveling through, but what you'll return home to, and make it all part of a global view of wine. So now that you've had a little taste, we're going to treat you every single night with wonderful wines from the region. But one special night, you're going to have a gorgeous wine paired dinner where we highlight your wine house wines. They're going to tell you all about it, visit your tables to ask questions, make sure everyone's having a wonderful time. And with that, I think it's time that you start enjoying your wonderful celebration of wine cruise with Ama Waterways.
Right on.
I like the word wonderful.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Let me turn that off. Okay. Can you see my screen? Good. All right. Are we good?
I can't see it.
Can't see it? Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Let me get that back going. Here we go. There we go.
We're back.
Perfect.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm glad to be back. All right. So Liz did a good job, certainly in the video. And it's interesting how wine cruises came to be historically with our company. That's an interesting story, as I say, too. But can you talk a little bit more, cash out a little more about what can happen or what folks can expect on a wine cruise?
Absolutely. Rudy and Christine had a friend of theirs come on board a ship years ago, who's a winemaker in California, and he did an impromptu wine tasting. It was so popular, they thought, perhaps we need to do some wine cruises. So honestly, we took the normal itinerary and added things to it. Added wine excursions, not in place of, but added these wonderful experiences on board the ship. So it's an incredible value. The wine tastings on board, there's 2 or 3, depending on what the situation is, where everyone gathers in the main lounge, and your wine host from North America is the person that actually does teach you about the region that you're traveling through. You get to try some of the wines that are on board the ship next to some of their wines, so you can taste the differences between old world and new world.
Yeah.
We get to go on wine excursions. The wine host is there to be with you on board the entire week. It is just an immersion into a huge part of the culture of Europe, which is culinary and wine.
Correct.
It's exquisite.
It is. And actually, these wine cruises with the guest winemakers are our highest rated when it comes to the guests when they fill out their surveys post-cruise. These score very, very well. And I think it's because people just feel like, wow, we got to do this fabulous cruise. And on top of that, we got a real wine education as well. So they're really, really popular. So Lori was very wise, as she is, in picking a departure that will have a guest winemaker on board. And soon we'll know who that is. We're kind of finalizing, I think, this year, right, Liz, a little bit, and then we're going to be adding for next year.
Next year's coming in fast, so stay tuned. That's going to be fun.
Indeed. So I'm going to show you just some quick pictures here in the interest of time, just going to buzz through these to show you some of the, I guess I'd say iconic would be the word, wine growing regions that you'll see on this itinerary. Puy, if you say, and Liz, if you want to add anything, just jump in because
no, keep going. This is mainly for, I believe, for white wine. And like I said, in Burgundy, it's all so different, just like a mile away. Beaujolais is another grape. It's not the Pinot Noir or the Chardonnay, it's the Gamay grape. And Beaujolais has a huge history built up around it historically. So seriously, it's very rich in different wines.
And this Côte Rôtie, I think Côte, I heard it means cliffs, I think, or something like. But I mean,
and rôti is roasted, like, yeah, the roasted cliffs.
I mean, that is some difficult terroir there. I mean, as far as some grape picking and whatnot, but yeah, that's quite remarkable. And I know that France is very much, I think I've learned over the years that it's all hands off. I mean, you know, they don't do a lot of helping Mother Nature. They just let Mother Nature take its course, correct? I think
for the most part, yes. And a lot of the fun of going to these wineries, like in Hermitage, like this picture, it is such an interesting combination of centuries old traditions right next to cutting edge technology. And you see those as you go along into these wine excursions. So if you pay close attention, your education level will just exceed anybody that you know in the States for wine. Yes.
I bet. That's true. I mean, old world in terms of some of the traditions, but then they are, on, like you say, cutting edge when it comes to the latest and greatest in enology and wine and all of that. Here's Cornas region, quite beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. Look at the river back there. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So again, and then near Avignon, of course, is the Châteauneuf du Pape, because Avignon was the palace of the Pope for a while when it was not located in Rome, and you'll be able to visit that on this itinerary. By the way, it's not all wine. Some of you might be thinking, no, there's history and art and culture and culinary and you name it. Matter of fact, the section, the French actually call the area that you're cruising that starts in the north and comes down through Lyon, the gastronomic valley of France. So you're going to enjoy that. And then I always find this in, again, the Châteauneuf du Pape region in terms of, wow, you talk about, you know, wine that is, I guess, complexity of the grapes as it relates to the soil here, or the rocky soil, right?
It's the galettes, and they're, that just means that the vines have to search, like deeply rooted, to find water. So those vines are centuries old, and so the grapes that are produced are intense, very intense. And Châteauneuf du Pape is so interesting. Their wine is, they can have up to, I can't remember the number, I want to say 12, maybe even more varietals in the blend. And that's what Chateauneuf du Pape is. And you only get to go there on a wine cruise. We don't do that on a normal itinerary. Ooh, we should do a wine tasting.
Yes.
Because we've left Burgundy, but I still have a Bourgogne. I grabbed the Louis Jadot Bourgogne, which is Burgundy. And it's a Pinot Noir. So it's really fun if we have a wine host on board who produces a Pinot Noir over here. Oregon, Russian River Valley.
Right.
It's so fun because the Pinot Noir grape is so interesting. It clones itself. It kind of breaks down quickly. So it can change so fast with the terroir. And so we're looking at our grapes, our wine, we're seeing it, we're swirling it. We're gonna stick our nose in. The scent of a old world wine has a little bit more of an earthy smell. It isn't as fruity, but it's still got those elements. So you're still gonna have a little bit of stone fruit. Just let it coat. Oh, I love a good red Burgundy. And then I'm just savoring as Brian, just keep going and I will just savor.
Savor. All right. So let's jump into quickly go through the itinerary. As I mentioned, Geneva in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, you have an opportunity to do a 3-night pre-cruise here. And of course, one of the cool things about our land programs, we stay at very nice properties, number one. Number two, though, the cruise manager who's going to be with you on the ship is there at the hotel with you. So you get to develop the camaraderie, the relationship, as it were, with the cruise manager. And they're always very gregarious, effusive, fun people. And you'll get to know them when you, ahead of the guests that are getting on the ship and haven't met them, you get the advantage, if you do the pre-cruise, in this case, in Geneva, to meet the cruise manager, and they're like your private concierge right there at the hotel. There's a guided tour as well. We do breakfasts in the morning, and then on the way to Chalon-sur-Saône, you come to this Annecy, I think it's pronounced, if I'm saying that correctly. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Okay.
It's beautiful.
Close enough for government work, as my dad used to say. This is, as you might imagine, they call this sort of the Venice of France, beautiful little village. One of our cruise managers, who you'd be really fortunate to have as your cruise manager, Camille Dernier, her parents live here, and so she spends quite a bit of time here, but you'll enjoy your time there. And then this is the embark city, which is Chalon-sur-Saône on the Saône River, where you'll embark. And by the way, around the corner from me here in Petaluma, my French neighbor, this is her hometown. So I always tell her when I'm out walking the dog, I did another webinar and I talked about your hometown again. So
wow.
No, funny. She's married to an American guy, but yes, her parents still live here. And she said, anytime you need help, I can come and help you do the French webinars. I said, okay. So one of these times I'm gonna have my neighbor here with me. And help.
So awesome.
Corinne is her name. And she loves our puppy, Talia. That's her favorite neighbor. Anyway, I'm going to let Liz talk about the Hospice de Beaune, because this is very unique.
This. I know. Seriously, this is one of the reasons why I am dying to get on this itinerary. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, these roofs are quintessential in Burgundy. You don't find them on the Rhone. The architecture changes. But this particular hospice is a hospital, centuries old, I think 400, 500 years old, medieval times. And what occurred was anytime the outskirts, the villages that were surrounding had issues like famine, plague, whatever it was, the hospital, of course, would take care of them. And as a thank you, the villages would give them a gift of vineyards, wine. So the wine cellars in these hospice locations are incredible. And they also believed that wine was a very important part of wellness. And Christine always jumps, she's one of our owners, she always jumps in and says, It's because it was so much better to drink than the water. It was safer to drink than the water because of the alcohol in it. So this is one of the excursions when you go on the Essence of Burgundy. One of the first places you go is Beaune and the Hospice de Beaune.
Indeed. And by the way, I should mention, because I sometimes forget to mention, and Liz probably would mention this later on, but I'll say it up front. You know, when you visit these places, these various vineyards, some of the ones we've seen already, and you want to purchase some of the wine to bring back to the ship, the nice thing is there's no corkage fee on the ship. So you can bring the wine back, share with your table. Everybody shares their wine. And again, we have really nice wine on board that changes every night, white varietals, red varietals, et cetera, and they're from the area. But you might, again, bring your bottle back to the ship and want to share it. And again, so there's no corkage fee. So I want to make mention.
Well, and just to be frank,
Yeah.
Lori and I were on a wine cruise together a few years ago, and we did exactly that. We would purchase the wine out in the itinerary and bring it on board the ship, and we all had such a wonderful time together. That's how I got to know Lori, on a wine cruise.
And I'll tell you that I did this in Bordeaux. I did an Alma River cruise in Bordeaux, and we would bring the wine back on board, and after dinner and after the entertainment, we would go up to the hot tub with a glass of wine. And so imagine sailing through Bordeaux, sitting in a hot tub while you're drinking Bordeaux wine. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
I want to be there now.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic indeed.
Wow.
You can do the same. You can do the same here. Tournas, Mâcon. So I'm going to go through some of these towns that you're going to visit. Of course, the history here as well, particularly the Roman history. You know that the Romans spread far and wide. You'll get to visit different monasteries and abbeys. So here's the beautiful Cluny Abbey. This is a smaller monastery, the Royal Monastery of Brou, which again, you can see is relatively small, but you know, that same cruise manager who I was mentioning earlier, Camille, this is actually her favorite monastery in all of France, is this small, intimate one. So that's kind of nice.
And notice the roof. It's very similar to the Hospice de Beaune. So that's the importance of this architecture. You'll notice it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. That mosaic, beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Very, very compelling. Yeah, absolutely stunning. Yeah. And then, as Liz will tell you here, you then visit these smaller family wineries, right?
Right. That's the charm and the magic of Burgundy, because we take you to family-owned wineries and vineyards. And like I said, they change within yards of each other based on the terroir. It's very, very small. It's not like the big estates that you have in Napa. It's very small vineyards. Maybe they produce the red Burgundy or the white, depending on where they're located. But it's quite a wine adventure, and they're so nice and friendly and excited to have us there.
Yeah. And so a lot of times the question comes up, will these wineries ship wine? Well, the smaller family-owned ones that don't produce very much, and mainly their wine is just sold in the local area, they're not of a mindset. They don't do shipping because they sell, you know, pretty much all their wine locally, right? But some of the maybe larger wineries might be able to ship for you. Is that a fair statement, Liz?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. When you head down to the Rhone, like Hermitage, Beaujolais, some of the larger ones, you will probably be able to ship more wine. But I highly suggest buy the wine in Burgundy, bring it on the ship, have it for dinner, share it with your friends, stick it in your suitcase in a wrap. You know, I've done that a few times. So you take a risk, but
yeah. And
enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Via Franche-d'Ossonne, this beautiful area of cruising, so bucolic and quite lovely. This is now, of course, you're heading south, and you're heading south to the gastronomic capital, certainly of France, and probably Europe, is in Lyon, certainly. And there's so much to enjoy here in Lyon from a gastronomic standpoint. Very famous Michelin 3-star chef Paul Bocuse, who had a hand in bringing back La Chaîne de Retesseur, which means the goose cookers in French. And we are actually invited members. As a river cruise line, we were the first river cruise line to be invited to be members of La Chaîne de Retrousseur, which had its reimagining here. It started in the 12th century, it got going again in the 1950s with the help of Paul Bocuse, again, Michelin 3-star chef. So the food on board, you'll absolutely flip, absolutely fantastic. Any words about Lyon, Liz? Or
I agree, it is food. This is one of the most beautiful cities, but it is the beautiful confluence of wine and food. I think there's more Michelin rated restaurants here than I think it's any place besides Paris. I could be wrong, but there are quite a few, not just Paul Bocuse.
I can also tell you, as for the maybe gentlemen out there that are thinking of the silk scarves here in Lyon, able to go silk scarf shopping. I showed the owner of the shop in Lyon a picture of my wife so she could see her hair color, eye color, and she helped me pick out some beautiful silk scarves from Lyon. So I'll give you that.
That is so fun.
Yeah. Vienne, also, again, St. Apollinaris Cathedral in Valence. You see the word bike here. I haven't really mentioned this, but we offer 25 bikes on board. And you can take those out on your own, or you can go as part of a guided tour where there's always a guide at the front and the rear for fastest and slowest riders. This is something that, and particularly in April, when this is set up to go, that'll be a lovely spring bike ride. And again, that's very popular that we offer on board. And then coming to Avignon, I mentioned the Palace of the Popes here, certainly worth seeing. And then finishing up the cruise in Van Gogh country. Also, you see a small sort of Roman Colosseum knockoff. That's the real thing when the Romans were there. And again, if you have any interest in Van Gogh, his museum is here. He spent much of his time painting here in Arles. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. So this again is where the cruise comes to an end. And then on the way, if you're going to do the Barcelona post cruise, a highlight is that along the way to Barcelona, we do stop here at the mountains and abbey of Montserrat. And that, I mean, pretty evocative picture of that abbey set in the monolithic rocks there in Spain, and then finishing up in sensational Barcelona. And again, your cruise manager will be with you. Very nice property, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Amacello, 144 guests only. French balcony ship. So those are quite popular, especially in the spring when you'll be going. French balcony is again here, window with a railing. This is the lounge area, if you will. And I'm kind of going to go through these quickly as we're approaching 45 minutes. This is that Chaîne de Retrousseur. This is that gastronomic organization that you have to be invited to join. Let's just say that the dining on board is superb, truly, truly wonderful. It'll match the wine experience that you have. And we like to say that we have freezers on board just for ice cream. Any words on the culinary aspect, Liz, you'd like to share? Or even
the fun thing on a wine cruise is often the wine paired dinner, where we highlight the wine host's wines with our amazing cuisine, is the Chaîne de Retrousseur dinner. So it's almost like being on a floating Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah. My weakness is, people say gluten-free. I'm the guy that says more gluten.
Gluten, give me gluten.
Give me gluten. Anyway, there is a bakery on our ships that is in full operation. If you want something to do at 2 in the morning, you can go hang out with the baker, making all the beautiful pastries and croissants and thick, dense European breads. And again, that's my weakness. And they're served obviously in the morning, but then throughout the day as well. Also, any dietary needs that you may have, whatever they may be, and there's a lot of them, just let Lori know, and then the ship will look after you in good stead for sure. And then Liz likes to talk about the always available choices because she has a weakness for one in particular.
Oh my gosh, and Lori probably shares this because I think that's where it started. And this is going to sound so funny. It's our potato wedges.
Oh my gosh.
Anyone that tries them, because they are like potato fries on steroids, and they come in a little basket. And a friend of mine and I were trying to decide, what does that pair best with, white wine or red wine? And honestly, either, or beer.
Or beer. That's right. Which, by the way, that is how the alcohol works. There's mimosas in the morning. There's wonderful wine and beer at lunch and at dinner. The varietals change every night. And by the way, if you like last night's red wine more or the previous night, just ask for it. We're very flexible that way. There's no such thing as a house wine. The thing with a house wine is that's a house wine. That's what you get.
Right. Right.
Change it up every night, and so you're able to pick and choose. This is, I kind of euphemistically say we've been practicing social distancing as it relates to shore excursions all along. And what I mean by that is that the ship's complement of guests breaks up into much, much smaller groups of generally 15, 20 people. And the reason is because we do them at pace levels. We also offer late risers as well. So bottom line is that you're never with a large group of people on a tour. It's always a much smaller group. So that's kind of nice. And again, pace level, gentle, regular, and active. By the way, the gentle pace, you might think, well, that's just for people that may have ambulatory issues. Actually, if you like to take lots of pictures, if you're a photographer, to go at a gentler pace gives you more time to find that perfect picture, right? So just a little inside tip there. I mentioned the onboard fleet of bicycles. There's special interest tours as well. So really, really, and these are all included. So you pick and choose, all included. There's no bad choice. They're all wonderful, and it's up to you to pick the ones you want. You can stay in touch with your family and friends back home and make them very, very jealous because we have high-speed wireless internet. And Rudy, our owner, always says, we spend more on broadband than we do on fuel for the ship. So we want to be in touch. And the fact that, frankly, we don't advertise, so we spend a little maybe more on the broadband so everybody can communicate with their friends and family and send them postcards. We actually have the My AMA Cruise app. It's an app that you can put on your handheld device. It has maps, it has the daily guide, and we're always augmenting it. So that's something you want to take advantage of as well. By the way, if you're current or past military, any sailing you come with us, we'll give you an additional 100 per person discount as a military person, right? Now, the word AMA, you might wonder, where the heck does that come from? What does that mean? AMA comes from the Latin word amare. Amare is the Latin root word for love. So we say AMA means love. We love our guests, we love our crew, we love our travel advisor partners. It's just a big love fest all the way around. So that's what that means. And so yes, the story continues. The rivers are flowing. We are suspended right now through the end of March, but we are ready, willing, and able to go when we get the word to go. And the good news is that it seems that every day there's more good news, certainly about the vaccines and all of that. But we're going to stay very much on the cusp of when it's open, we're going to be ready to go. So our owner, to be very candid, Rudy, in his interviews, his best guess in terms of if people say, when do you think we're going to start operating? His guess is August, but it is a guess. Some people think it's going to be earlier, so we'll just have to see. But again, the books, as I say, for 2022 and 23 are open, and people are making reservations for the future, right? So now, anything to add, Liz and or Lori, before we do questions?
No, you did a great job, Brian.
Okay. Well, thank you for
So
that.
I wanted to say one thing about the excursions while you're looking at the questions.
Okay.
Not everybody is an excursion type person. And
Right.
the beauty of river cruising is when you pull into a port, you're literally pulling into, in some cases, city center. And I think a lot about Cologne, you are in the shadow of the cathedral. You can step off the ship and explore Cologne on your own, and especially a lot with the smaller towns. So it's going to be very similar. If you're not the excursion type, you can step off the ship and go explore on your own. That's really, it's different from ocean cruising in that you're not in an industrial part of town. In some cases, you may have to take a coach to get to a site, but for the most part, you can step right off the ship and there you are.
Yeah, and I couldn't
that
agree
is
more.
the case
And
with
I
this
used to work in the on the ocean sector. I worked for Ocean Cruise Lines, and when I came and I did my first river cruise, that was one of the things that really struck home to me was just everything is right out your door because you're pulling. Because again, what I said earlier, in that oceans take you to countries, rivers take you through them. These towns and villages and cities, they sort of grew up from the river. So the city centers are usually right on the river. So you're very, very close by. So we like to say every day is a sea day versus a sea day. We say SCE for the first C and SEA for the second C. So you absolutely 100% right on, Lori, for mentioning that. And that's, again, one of the allures of river cruising is the convenience factor, because you're cruising typically at night, and then your floating hotel goes with you, and you're in these beautiful bucolic towns and villages that are right out your front door.
Yep.
Okay, questions, here we go. So Rick Silva said, I have both wines in front of me. Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Not in you?
At home, Rick. Actually, and Rick and his wife are booked on a cruise this April, so they're very much hoping they get to go.
We're hoping to.
Good.
It's so funny.
Right.
All of us that work with Alma Waterways, work for Alma. We were like, I'll go. Let me go. Can I go?
Yeah. Now Jennifer Jost, she had to leave, but she had some questions. First, she said, "Hi, Lori. I'm so excited for this cruise." And then she said, "Is the $400 refundable?" Okay, good question. So the $400, which is what it takes to reserve your space, $400 per person. Initially, 200 of that is non-refundable right off the bat, but the other 200 doesn't become non-refundable until 120 days out, 4 months prior. So once again, if we're looking at this cruise for next April, that wouldn't be till January, February, March. So and December, around December 7th, that second $200. But again, Lori can go over all this with you, certainly, but that's being totally transparent how that $400 per person deposit works. I did not see the difference of staterooms with the D's and the E's, right? D as in David, E as in Edward. So those D's and E's, I believe, and I'd have to look at my ship's design, but I think they're the lower categories that have what are called duck view or swan view. In other words, but I should.
The fixed window on the bottom level, yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, which is plenty fine. That's typically where I cruise, and completely, absolutely 100% fine. The French balconies, people like, for obvious reasons, the fresh air and all that. But bottom line is, you're going to have a wonderful experience no matter where you cruise on the ship, no question. How many bottles?
Let me add to that. On the Amacello, the size of the staterooms, whether you're on E, D, C, B, or A, unless you're in a suite, the size are all the same.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
So, and the ship is your home. If you're in an E or a D, the ship is still your home, the entire ship. So no matter where you're booked, I mean, I do love a French balcony because it's so nice. I love opening it at night and just listening to the water go by. But yes, all of them are wonderful for different reasons. So if that's better in your budget, don't hesitate.
Absolutely. Another question, how many bottles can we buy at each stop and bring back on the ship? I guess I'd say as many as you can carry.
As many as you can drink.
Well, that's true.
Share.
Stateroom.
Gotta share. At a certain point, you have to share.
Yes.
How does a small family winery deal with 144 people showing up at once? Well,
we don't show up at once.
Right.
It's in different, usually what happens is it will be smaller groups. And in the morning, one group goes to, let's say, the winery, and the other group might go to a city tour, and then they switch. The next group goes to, so it's never 100, you never have a group that big. That's another beauty of Alma Waterways. We've been doing that for years. It's only, 25 people per guide. So yes, it's really nice size. You have the Quiet Box device, and we don't do 144 people at one time.
That's correct.
And there's multiple excursions in each port.
Right.
So not everybody chooses, so it's not just one option. There are multiple options, and not everybody chooses to go to the winery. I can't imagine why not, but some people may want to go bike riding or hiking, but there are other options as well.
There are, and then that leads to the next question, any museums or churches to tour? Absolutely, there are. There are lots of museums and lots of churches. I showed a few pictures of churches and monasteries and abbeys, and there are churches. And then, of course, the Van Gogh Museum in Arles, that's one. There are museums in Lyon all along the way. Because, frankly, there might be some people that, at a certain point, okay, I want a little bit of culture that's not the viticulture. That's
Right.
another,
Very good. Very good.
another type of culture. So certainly. So does everyone always?
Yeah.
That's right. Does everyone fly into Geneva and out home from Barcelona? That's only if you do the pre and the post land program, because you may decide to do something different. The main thing is you'll embark the ship in Chalon-sur-Saône and disembark the ship in Arles. So there are different opportunities in terms of where you fly in and out of. So you may choose to do your own thing. Our programs, as far as pre, our Geneva, and post land is in Barcelona, but Lori can help you if you want to do something a little bit different than what we offer, which people do, frankly. People have different interests, varying interests, and so that's absolutely doable, and we have a really good air program. Yeah.
When I did the Rhone my very first time with a bunch of friends, we ended in Arles and took a train to Marseille for 3 days. It was amazing. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities to do other things as well.
Right. Does the ship sometimes get stuck at a lock and then have to hang out there for the next couple of days, and then the next stop is missed? I mean, I never get into trying to predict Mother Nature and the weather and things of that nature, but here's what I will say. Back to Rudy, Mr. Yoda of river cruising. He has designed our ships to be the lowest draft, lightest weight ships of any ships anywhere. So his passion is ship design. So again, you might say, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, low draft, lightweight means we can operate in water levels that are lower than our competitors. If there's a major rainstorm and the water level rises, in the river, then it is tougher to get under the bridges. But on average, in a given year, only 5% or a little less than 5% of cruises are impacted by things of this nature. So your odds are pretty good, 95% therein, that everything's going to be copacetic. Now, if you're on one of those cruises, okay, then that's the roll of the dice. But the fact that our ships are designed that way certainly is helpful, no question. And then just the fact that 95% of the time the ships operate on the itinerary that was planned. Right. And the other thing is, a couple years ago, was it 18? There was a spin of low water on the Rhine and the Danube, and I'm telling you, we handled it with such aplomb that it just was amazing. And I happened to be over there experiencing my first low water experience, and we really handled it, because that's the thing, when everything's hunky-dory, everybody can do a relatively good job. But when the chips are down and when things go south, that's who you really tell a company's mettle, if you will. And we really, really came through.
I can tell you a quick story, because I was there as well, and I was on the itinerary. I was supposed to be on the Rhine and Moselle Splendors, which is Rhine-Moselle. We ended up doing Amsterdam, and our crew, our people in Basel that run our operations over there, came up with a new itinerary for us. So we went Amsterdam through Belgium. I mean, we went all around that area, and we called it the Magical Mystery Tour because we weren't quite sure. That was so popular that now that is a new itinerary for us, because the response and the reviews was out of this world. And they did that on the fly, trying to figure out, okay, we can't go there, where should we go? We got to have excursions. It was extraordinary. And now it's a new itinerary.
So necessity is the mother of invention. And
yeah.
One other thing to note, because I was on one of the Danube low water cruises. I know we're bumping up against an hour, but it's really important to note that because the area that we're sailing in is relatively small, you're never stuck on a 5-star floating hotel. You're never stuck on the ship, because there are coaches that will still ensure that you get to your excursion. So if you do have to park at a lock for a couple days, that doesn't mean you're going to sit on the ship. You'll actually continue on with your excursions.
Right.
Are there stops every day, or are there some days on the river? So I'm looking at the itinerary now, and on day 5, we have scenic cruising. On day 7 in Villefranche-sur-Saône, there's scenic cruising on this itinerary, and then Vienne and Valence.
That's not the whole day. That's just a portion of the day.
Correct.
we always stop in ports, but there is some beautiful scenic cruising.
Correct. So it's a combination. So there is scenic cruising definitely involved.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Yes. Are there sometimes speakers on board, i.e. giving lecture on something? Well, of course, on this particular cruise specifically anyway, there's going to be a guest winemaker, and there will be, the focus will be on that person for sure. But yes, there are certainly on other cruises, we do have guest speakers that come aboard that speak to the local culture or history or whatnot, and that varies. But we can always check in advance to see if we do have somebody. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, and you have to know that our cruise managers are those speakers. Whenever you are in an area that has rich history, if you're traveling along and there's a lot of castles, whatever is going on, the cruise manager is your guide, and they are extraordinary. These are not just people that know hospitality. These are people that boggle my mind. I mean, most of them have masters in something, history, or they're extraordinary people, and they will be teaching all along the way. So honestly, if you don't want to learn something, turn off your quiet box, walk away, take a nap. But there's so much information, you would have to be asleep.
Do the priciest and cheapest rooms go first and go fast? On average, this ship again has mostly French balconies that we are selling on the ship, and so as Liz was saying earlier, other than the suites, they're similar size, so it's a little bit different in terms of how this ship sells. But I will say the French balconies, especially in the spring, yeah, they go first. They definitely go first. There are less of the lower categories, so they sell too, because if that is what you want, then it's better to act more promptly because there are less of them, right? So that's how sort of that works.
And this is a prime date. The first week of April into the second week, seriously, that is, normally we don't do wine cruises during that time because that is considered, not considered shoulder season. So this is the sweet spot of all things coming together in perfection. So I would say grab it fast if you're going to come with us. Otherwise, you are going to miss out.
Well, the other thing,
I guarantee it.
Right, and just to reiterate, there's the $500 per person savings through the end of March. Now, that could get extended. It may not, and I'm not the one that makes that decision. That's at a different pay grade in terms of that decision. But we have seen a number of promotions that were due to end on a certain day come to an end. So just as a heads up, I'm not saying that it will end 100% because only death and taxes are 100%. Everything else is subject to change. But nonetheless, just keep that in mind. Can we do one day of the pre and then one day of the post rather than 3 on each? Well, so the short answer is no, because we've purchased a block of rooms, if you will, committed to a block of rooms at those properties in Geneva and Barcelona for 3 nights. You can add on to those nights, but you can't do shorter nights. Now, Lori can help you with that to do sort of your own individual thing wherever you might want to do it, whether it's Geneva or Barcelona. But our programs are 3 on the pre-end and 3 on the post-end, Geneva, Barcelona, right? So that's how we.
And most people we're seeing, we were just talking about this before we started, that the trend right now is staying in Europe for a longer period of time. So I would strongly consider going ahead and doing either the pre or the post, simply because once you're over there, and none of us have been able to do it for over a year. So once we get there, we want to stay and just soak it in.
Yeah. And to that point, because we've seen that trend that people are staying longer, we've come up with another promotion, which is you can do a back-to-back cruise. And we have this cool algorithm where you just tell Lori kind of your time frame, and then you've done the essence of Burgundy and Provence, and maybe you want to tack on Bordeaux or the Seine or maybe the Danube, but you want to do back-to-back. So that second cruise, we're offering a 10% savings. And the reason this has all come about is because we've seen the trend happening that people are going for longer. Because like Liz said, we've all been hunkered down for so long that when we go, we're going to stay out there longer. So there's this new, again, back to back. So that second departure. And what happens is Lori will give a time frame and maybe and then this algorithm will come up with all the choices. So you don't have to study the brochure and see which date goes with which and that ship. And it's like, you know, like a jigsaw puzzle. No, the algorithm figures that all out, and our tech gurus in SoCal at our office figure that out. So it makes it a nice and easy to do. So we'll make mention of that special as well. All right. Okay, so parting words, Lori, you take it away.
All right. Well, first off, I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the wine tasting. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And most of all, I just hope that you're all staying healthy. And, you know, I know we've all got cabin fever, but I promise we're going to be able to travel soon. Thank you. And thank you especially to Brian and Liz for coming along and giving us some great information about wine and great information about the cruise. So thank you all, and cheers.
Cheers. That was fun.
Yeah, a little bit left. All right.
Cheers. Yes. Remember, cheers. Now sip and look at each other.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Okay,
No
I'll
worries.
practice that. I'll do that tonight with my wife at the dinner table.
There
Okay.
we go. Perfect.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening. I echo certainly Lori's sentiments. Let's all be well and let's all get back out there. Right on. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. Bye-bye.